button and it lights up. You're live.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming to the Census Complete Count Committee first meeting. I appreciate you being here. I was appointed to be in charge, quote unquote, at this time. I'm the so-called staff member that's going to be making sure that's facilitated appropriately. If you wouldn't mind joining me in the Pledge of Allegiance prior to our meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Today we have joining us our actually five appointed members, but we only have four because one's missing. We have Nicole Bratley. It says Bratley, but for the record, it's Bratley, and she's from District 1. Karen Flanagan from District 2. Gaynell Cruz from District 3. Rebecca Fossen from District 4. And Deborah DeGrant, but she's not here for some reason, for District 5. So I'd like to start the meeting there. We also have Lewis. Last name Lewis?
Cardenas Camacho. Camacho is just fine.
Camacho. Mr. Camacho. We have him here from the Complete Count Census Committee in Phoenix, and he's going to be doing the training for us. But we have a little bit of homework to do prior to that training. And as you can see, those that we have on the agenda is that we have a discussion and possible action, the election of the chairman and vice chairman of our board. So at this point, I'd like to ask for any discussion or a movement for chairman for our board here, out of you four. Mm-hmm.
I'd like to nominate Becky Fossen. Someone second.
I'll second the motion.
Congratulations, Ms. Fossen. You are now chairman of the Complete Count Committee. Oh, please all vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion, thank you. That's your job. Okay, now it's Becky's job. Okay, so I'd also like to, now Becky, I'd like you to go forward with the vice chair nomination.
Is that it? Did I? Can I have a motion for a vice chair?
I'll nominate Nicole Bratley.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, now it's up to you, Chairman Fossen. You'll be carrying the meeting from now on, and I will be here for support.
Okay. Well, I guess from the agenda, Lewis, you're going to be doing the training?
No,
Is that?
number 2.
Okay, discussion and possible action on the open meeting law presentation. And that's going to be Jenny Anderson, thank goodness.
Good afternoon. I'm Jenny Anderson. I'm the clerk of the board for Mojave County. In front of you, you'll have a packet that's kind of an overview of the open meeting law. I'm not going to read it to you or go page by page today. However, please make sure you review that for future. So just a few points for today will be kind of the major ones. You're a sub-political body from our Board of Supervisors. They appointed you to this board, so you do fall under the open meeting law. So any of the statutes, any of the requirements that they have to follow, you also do. It can be a little overwhelming, but there's a few basic things that if you follow them, you're good. The biggest one is you cannot discuss anything that's not on an agenda. So anything that's listed on this agenda, we can have discussion on as we bring them up, but we can't talk about what Ryan's doing tonight for dinner. That's not agendized, nor do you probably want, But so you do have to stick to the agenda. Just as a kind of a reminder, you can't meet outside as a committee and discuss committee business because you are a public body. It has to be posted. You can't discuss decisions. You can't, one can't call the other one and go down the line. So even though it sounds kind of funny, that's the law. That's not our rules. It is the law. So if you want to read through, it's kind of a PowerPoint. It breaks it down in layman terms versus reading the whole long Attorney General's posted, and it's actually from the Ombudsman's office, so it's a really good PowerPoint. And if you have any questions after you review it, feel free to call my office or even Ryan's office if you choose, and we can answer any questions you have.
Okay. Is that it? Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Okay, number 3, discussion and possible action on the overview of the committee bylaws. Ryan, is that you?
Who prepared the agenda? Oh, really? Do you know where the committee bylaws are? Do we have them? Oh, can I see one? I believe the supervisors have already accepted it, right? Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
If I could, let me just have a moment to look at this real quick. Okay, I mean, as with any committee, the bylaws will show you the procedures by which you follow through with your meetings. Tells you what the mission statement is. We want to make sure that we follow through with what the supervisors have adopted. The supervisors created the committee here, and so you report to them. So make sure you just follow, the mission statement, what the purpose is, that your duties and responsibilities are outlined in there. We've already nominated a chairman and a vice chairman. Also talks about the meetings. It looks like they're the third Wednesday of each month at 3 p.m. Quorum is a majority of the members shall constitute a quorum. It's very important that you always have a quorum. Only a quorum is necessary in order to pass anything. So we got to make sure we have a quorum. I think that's about it. Any questions about them? They've already been adopted, so there's no need to adopt them. So, any questions? Okay.
So we just move forward with that then to the next?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Item number 4, discussion and possible action regarding the Census 2020 Complete Count Committee Education and Training. I believe that's going to be Lewis.
All right, that's us. Thank you, Madam Chair Fossen, Vice Chair Bretley. So my name's Luis Cardenas Camacho. I just wanted to clarify, I am actually not going to be doing the training. My partner, Kimberly Robinson, will be. I am the partnership specialist that is assigned to statewide, so I'm all over Arizona. So my duties are the congressional offices, so I'm the partnership specialist at the liaison for the congressional office and the Senate offices, the governor's office, and state agencies and state legislature. I have been helping out in northern Arizona as well, but now you actually have a wonderful partnership specialist who's taking over for me, and she's actually going to be doing the training. Her name's Kimberly Robinson. I'll give her a second right now to introduce herself. But I also want to let you know that you will have another partnership specialist that we are in the process of hiring that will be based out of Bullhead City. So you will have another partnership specialist that's a little bit more local. And I think they know how to do that because I don't know how to control from the...
All
All right, hi, like my partner Louise said, my name is Kimberly Robinson. I'm based out of Flagstaff, Arizona, and I am the partnership specialist covering all of northern Arizona. And basically what I do is what Louise does, but focusing north of Phoenix. And I'll be your point of contact for any questions you have for your complete count committee starting now, and I'll make sure that everyone has my contact information. We're ready to start the training? And are these sessions recorded? Hence the microphone? Okay, because I like to move around quite a bit when I'm talking, but I'll try to stay next to the microphone. All right. Hello, everyone behind me. I don't like to have my back to people. All right. Let's see. Okay. An overview of the complete count committees is that the purpose of the Complete Count Committee is to be a connection to the local community. We work with tribal, state, and local governments to ensure that we're able to reach the local population. Oh, you have a walk-around mic for me? What? That's great. Thank you. Testing? All right. All right, and the reason that complete count committees exist is we need someone that knows the community. I use two terms, of the community and in the community. Right now, I'm in your community representing the Census Bureau, but I'm not of the community. So people that are of the community are trusted faces and trusted voices and known faces of the Census Bureau. And we use the complete count committees to make sure that we reach these undercounted populations. So the structure of complete count committees is mainly based on how you feel is best for your community. We have committee members from the government, from media, from school districts, from churches, faith-based groups, any special interest group. Other complete count committees have superintendents, principals, reverends, priests, and small business owners. And I also encourage all of you to be active and participate if you like. If you have any questions, just raise your hand or just shout out my name. Why do we do a census? Because it's mandated by the Constitution. Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution says that we will do a census every 10 years, and we've been doing that since 1790. So it is federally mandated, and a lot of communities that have resistant groups that say, we don't want the government in our yard, we don't want you knocking on our doors, you're no trespassing and go away, and Kim, I have a restraining order on you, so don't come in here. All those signs, those don't mean anything, all right, because this is federally mandated. So for the decennial census overview, as a result of the 2010 census, good things happened for many people, not so good things happened to others. And for congressional seats, Arizona gained 1 seat based on the 2010 population. And Illinois lost 1 seat. And it could have been because of an undercount. Here in Mojave County, there is approximately a 25 to 30% undercount from the 2010 census. And that equates to millions, if not billions of dollars for Mojave County and Kingman. Now, what you see up here are some screenshots from the census website, and this is called Rome. This is how you can see how what's going on in your community, and it's a little hard to see up on the screen. And Luis is going to do an active presentation of Rome data. And so if you go to census.gov and search on Rome, and that stands for, I can't remember what it stands for, it's ROAM. And it's data that shows you the census tracts. So on the left side, you can see census tracts. Mojave County has 6 census tracts. On the right side, this low response score, the low response score is the prediction from the Census Bureau. You go, okay, cool. So the low response score is the prediction from the Census Bureau of how many people will not respond to the census for 2020. For Mojave County, Arizona is 26.1. So the U.S. Census Bureau, based on past numbers, predicts that 26.1% of the people in Mojave County will not respond. I'd say let's prove them wrong on that. Also, this is census tract information that Luis can show you. This shows you a complete breakdown of Mojave County based on the tract. So you have your entire county, it's huge, and then you have certain tracts, census tracts. Okay, so you may have like Bill Street is one tract, and then another street is in one tract. They're a lot bigger than that, but for example. This shows you a breakdown of what's going on in that tract. For example, renter-occupied housing, married couple households, population with broadband internet. And down at the bottom, it shows you your census audience segment category. That tells you what kind of households are in that area. For Mojave County, for this particular tract, it's country roads. Country roads, and I think I can read that. Country roads is the type of geography in the census tract, is what the census calls it. Country roads are rural areas, predominantly in the eastern United States, surrounding small towns and outside the suburbs of major cities. So when Luis goes over this, he'll show you how to get to Rome on the census website. And I like to use that audience information to know who I should target. So on the census tract, you have country roads as the audience, and it tells me right there it's going to be a lot of rural areas. You might have some cities surrounding it, so I know that if it's a rural area, it's going to be very spread out. I think I'm going to manage my target audience. Who should I go and talk to? And that might be school districts to get to the kids. If I can't get to each household, I'm going to get to the students, I'm going to get to the kids. Any questions about census tracts? All right, cool. Luis will go over that later on in the presentation. So, some changes based on the 2020 census versus the 2010 census. In 2020, for the first time ever, we'll be able to answer the census via telephone and via internet. It's not going to be an application that you have to download on your phone, but it will be a mobile-friendly site that you can answer 10 questions from the Census Bureau. And Luis came with a great slogan right off the bat. He said, 10 questions, 10 minutes. And that's all it'll take. So people can go and stand outside their local libraries, feed off the Wi-Fi signal, answer their census information there. It'll also be very helpful with mixed households and group quarters, like you have 4 roommates living together. All 4 roommates can go online and fill out that census form, and that gives us a more accurate count of who is in that household. We're also making sure we have a more accurate address list by our address canvassers. These are folks that are going to come out into the neighborhoods and actually physically walk around to ensure that the geography is correct. And that's where we use our complete count committees quite a bit to make sure that we're reaching every household and people know that we're going to be on their property. The census is confidential. All the information we get there is purely statistical. So if anyone's concerned about, or is my name going to be attached to something, is my marital status, is that going to be attached to anything? It's not. Census information is completely confidential. Everyone that works for the census is held to an oath, a lifetime oath. We can never give up any information about the census. Basically, it's no one's business. We can face a penalty of 5 years and $250,000 in fines. The Census Bureau, interestingly enough, has never been breached in security. I've had my information breached from the VA. I've had my information breached from the IRS. The Census Bureau has never been breached. That gives me a vote of confidence. Okay, so in your books, for complete count committees, there is a handout. The demographics of your community, and this isn't something we have to do now, but these are some things you think about when you're forming a complete count committee. This is the information you can also get from Rome, from the census website. You can consider who is a demographic in your community, education, income. Do you have a lot of students like we do in Flagstaff? Sorry about that, IT person. I minimize thank you. And also, how do these demographics present a challenge to a successful census? So, can anyone here think of, yeah, absolutely.
So it's not in the book itself, it's on the Census quick facts. So behind the book, there's a quick facts sheet. That's kind of what we're looking at. So, do you want to?
Yeah, actually, we don't have to do it in writing, but we can just have a short discussion.
Yeah. Usually when we have this training, it's a little less formal. We're around the table, we kind of all brainstorm. So we might not have the means to do that now. But if you do want to take a look at the census quick facts, I always find very interesting, no matter where I'm at in Arizona. And I've had the fortune of traveling all over Arizona, and I find that every community has some very uniqueness. So just take a few minutes and look through this front and back. You'll be able to see some quick facts about Mojave County and
It's on the side, and it's the one that has tiny little pigment on it.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I forgot we have to have this thing on. That is my fault. Again, it's called the Census Quick Facts, and it's behind your book. And it just has some basic demographic information on the county, on Mojave County and City of Kingman. If you want to take just a couple minutes and look through some of those numbers, I know the print is small, but if you want to take a couple minutes to look through that, we'll answer some of these questions.
All right, so we see that for Kingman City, Arizona, 6.6% of the population, based on as of July 1st, 2018, are persons under 5 years, people under 5 years old. Children 0 to 5 are one of our most undercounted population. That's on the U.S. Census Bureau's list of underrepresented populations. Now, I'll take any feedback from the audience. Why are children 0 to 5 undercounted and underrepresented? Any guesses? You don't get baptized? They don't get baptized. That's a record, absolutely. I was about to go there with that. Baptisms are a record, especially if you look at the early censuses, where baptisms, people wrote the names in the Bibles, baptized, baptized, baptized. I'm from the South. Some families still do that. And when they fill out the census form, some families still go to that Bible, and they have kids running around the house, absolutely. And they're just like, well, let me just go take a look at my Bible here and see what I got written down there. It's like, oh, let's see, Miss Nellie got baptized. She's in there. And they don't count all the other children. So, yeah. Any other guesses? Yeah, it could be a cultural reason. And also, some people don't think to count foster children, adopted children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. So they don't think that, like if you have a foster child, and they're thinking this child is temporarily in my home, so I should not put this child on my census form, they forget to write down that child. But keep in mind, if that foster child is with you, that foster child is not in another household. So that child is not being counted with you, not being counted in the parental household. So we're missing that kid altogether. And that's why one of my big things is to go to school districts, to be at kindergarten orientations, to be in the parents' faces, and any guardian just reminding them, please count these children. All righty. And from looking at that form, do y'all see any other challenges that you think, like, y'all have a high percentage of people with internet access. You have about 14% of folks that don't have internet access. That could be another challenge, getting them to call on the phone or fill out those forms when they come in the mail. Okay. And can I get the presentation back on the screen? Thank you. All right, so I went over a little bit the importance of complete count committees, is that you are of the community, you are the face of the Census Bureau locally, and you're a trusted voice. The structure, again, is up to you, but you can have everyone of certain cultures. And when I say culture, that could be veterans, that could be, and within veterans, you're talking about veterans of World War II, veterans of foreign wars. You can have small business owners there, people in HR. You can have religious leaders. You can have community councils that are focused on children. I'm thinking like Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. But again, that's up to you because you have your data. You know who's going to be a harder population to reach, so you bring in someone of that culture, of that community. Local government complete count committees, usually formed by the highest elected official in the local government. This could be the mayor. In some of the smaller towns, it may not be the mayor. It could be a senior city council member. That's the normal structure, but we don't hold you to that. And your mission is to develop a campaign of awareness and activism to get people to fill out the census form. So basically, my saying is, by the time the 2020 census comes around, you're gonna be like, woo, I don't need to see Kim again, thank goodness. Fill out your form because she will come knocking on your door, not me personally. But the thing is that we want to be a seed planted right now, and then when census kicks off April 1st, 2020, that's the official kickoff date, then people will know the census is coming. It's not an alien form in your mailbox, and they'll know about the website, and they'll know about how to call in. Community complete count committees. They are formed in specific low response areas. And you'll see your low response areas on that ROAM website, the Rome website. And they're also formed to fill a gap where there is no government sponsored complete count committee. So again, y'all are of the community, you're the local face of the U.S. Census Bureau, and y'all are filling that gap where the U.S. Census Bureau can't necessarily be. All right, key points about complete count committees. They're all inclusive, and the Census Bureau serves as a liaison between you and the Census Bureau. We're not there to run it for you. I can definitely be an advisor for you, but I can come to your meetings, but I'm not going to tell you how to go out into your community because, again, you're trusted voices and known faces. And the CCC operations are governed by the highest elected official or community leader. That doesn't mean that the mayor has to show up all the time because, of course, we have that wonderful D word, delegation. All right, so it's governed by the highest elected official, but it can be delegated out. The subcommittee, there could be subcommittees too if you want a media subcommittee, if you want a K through 12 subcommittee. And this also ensures that elected officials are aware of and involved in community committee activities. There could be a government subcommittee that includes city planners, cartographers, and municipal employees. There is usually always a GIS specialist on one of these committees because they have a lot of clout and a lot of say-so on how to form census tracts. They're the ones that deliver a lot of information to the census. Media subcommittee could also be social media. They're the ones that decide what to put up on the billboards. Do you advertise jobs? Do you go on Facebook, Twitter? All right.
So this is an important fact, and I just wanted to clarify this with the committees and subcommittees. So because you are formed and you are falling under the open meeting laws, right? It's completely and totally up to you. I will say, please check with your clerk. You don't want to do anything that'll put you in legal jeopardy, of course, because you do have open meeting laws. But the subcommittee strategy has worked a lot with counties similar to yours that have specific groups that they want to work with, right? So they have a large veteran population. They might want to have a veteran subcommittee, right? Subcommittee that kind of liaisons between all the different American Legion posts in the county or the VFW posts. Similar for small businesses. Like you happen to have some of the most active, and in my opinion, some of the best Chamber of Commerce in Arizona, right? You might want to have a subcommittee that has like a business subcommittee that kind of taps into Chamber of Commerce and all that. So that is the role of that, but you are still the primary committee, so any subcommittee that you form will fall under yours. So you don't form just to tell your clerk, you don't form a separate committee that's going to report now to, no, they will report to you. You are the primary committee member, Madam President, like you will be like the main point of contact for that, okay? But please, before you decide to do that, check with the clerk.
Thank you, Luis. All right, census key dates, and you'll also get a copy of these census key dates. Right now, we're pushing through promote participation in the census locally. That began in April, and that's just planting the seed that the census will be coming to you. Making people aware. March through June 2020 is a call to action for residents to respond. February through June. Group quarters are transitory locations, military bases, RV parks. And mid-March 2020, you get residents invited to respond. Beginning on March 12, 2020, self-response begins. So April 1st is the census kickoff date. March 12th is when they'll start seeing it in the mail. And then you have your census day, and then mid-April through July, we'll start doing our non-response follow-up, and that's when people start knocking on your doors. If we haven't reached you by mail, by reminders, our census takers will start showing up and knocking on doors to get the census out and to count those numbers. And a lot of local governments participate in activities throughout that time to remind people to respond to their census forms, and also to let folks know that someone will be coming door to door. You'll get a copy of these dates in another folder. Okay, so during the education phase, from now through December, you work with your complete count committees, raise awareness, let people know small things about the census, what questions are going to be on there. It's going to be 10 questions. They're not going to get the long census form. We'll also have a lot of regional census offices opening. There's going to be one, the closest one to you, I believe, is going to be in Flagstaff, in Central Flagstaff, in the old Walgreens warehouse. And then address canvassing operations in about 30% of areas. So some of your residents might start seeing census employees coming out and checking addresses to make sure that they are accurate and that they still exist. This will also really help if you have new construction. The awareness phase begins officially in January 2020, and your complete count committee will focus on highlighting the message of the census. You can have a locally branded slogan like "Everyone Counts" in Kingman, or "Don't Get Missed" in Mojave. I'm just thinking off the cuff here. Feel free to write these down. Just kidding. And that's when your complete count committee will go out and keep foot stomping and educating. The closer we get to the census, the more specific we start being. Right now in this phase, it's just planting seeds. I like to wear my Census 2020 t-shirt around. I walk around a lot of downtown areas. I went to Williams to speak to some of the recreation centers and to speak to the school district there. I was wearing my emblazoned turquoise Census 2020 shirt right here. I got stopped downtown in Williams 4 times and asked questions like, when is the census? Oh, it is 2020. How do I get a job? Things like that. So I do encourage t-shirts. I do encourage passive advertising. It does work. Motivation phase, March through April. Update your plans, increase activities, really get out there. Ensure that the committee is using the right activities in the right place and adjust as needed. So you don't want to go to a school activity, a football game, and use the same marketing materials that you used when you went to talk to the mayor. The reminder phase, fill out your census form, May through July 2020. Fill out your census form. Remind people that if you don't fill out your census form via telephone or mail or the internet, you are going to have census takers coming to your door. Please do not shoot at us. In the thank you phase, there's always a thank you phase. Thank you for filling out your census. And the complete count committees really go out there and hit that hard, because that means that more dollars are coming to you. Data for dollars, dollars for data.
I'm gonna cut in real quick. So we tag team like this. So really briefly, I did want to mention you do have the timeline in your booklet, everyone's booklet. There's an actual census timeline key dates paper in there, which has all of this information and a little bit more narrowed down dates. I do want to say for Mojave County, in some of the rural areas in Mojave County, which is a lot of Mojave County, right? You will have something called update leave. Okay, so what that is, the Census Bureau for a majority of the country is going to send out the invitation to respond, right? It's going to be a postcard. We will send you an example of that postcard and an example of the questionnaire once we have that available to us, so that you can tell your folks what that's going to look like and what to wait for. For a large percentage of our rural communities that are going to have update leave, what that is we are updating the address, because a lot of these folks don't actually get mail to a physical address, like their home, they don't get it at home, right? So we have to update our system, right? Whether it's, yes, this is a household here, and it's a housing unit with 10 units or whatever, and then leave. We're actually leaving a questionnaire with them so that they can complete it and mail it in. Okay, so they're not likely to receive a invitation, because we're actually going to take the questionnaire and drop it off for them to fill out. Now, that's not going to happen for all of Mojave County, just the rural counties that might not have addresses or stuff like that. Okay. Any questions on that? Because that one gets a little bit tricky. No? Yes.
There's a lot of them.
There is.
There's
Yes.
a lot of them. Our rural area has, many of them don't have addresses at all, and our addresses sometimes aren't real accurate. So
Right.
just a heads up.
Okay. So you will have those. So that's what's going to be happening. So just so that you're aware, again, it's a committee. If you hear, because you are going to be in your community, you are the trusted voices. People are going to reach out to you. Hey, why did Susie over there get their questionnaire and I have this invitation thing? What's up with that? Well, she lives in the rural community. You live in Kingman proper, so you actually have an address. She doesn't. She got the questionnaire. You got an invitation to respond. Both of you need to respond.
I was never here. Oh. All right, we do have another set of folders here that will give you that timeline that we were talking about. And we can take a 10-minute break now. Do y'all take breaks? Yes, take breaks. All right, 10 minutes.
I think after that one, there's itself does things called like the American Community Survey, does special surveys that your county government, the board of supervisors might have requested a survey, and so we go out there and conduct a survey for them, right? Those surveys can be extremely intrusive. I have already had this conversation myself with 2 of the congressional offices in Arizona, because one of the surveys that we have out there ask about what time do you leave your house, how far do you travel, what's your commute like, what time do you come back, right? And we had people go in there like, man, if anybody wanted to, come and take my stuff and rob me, they would have all the information here. Well, what that survey is it's a survey that was requested by Department of Transportation for funds for local commute funds that we're having. So there's a bridge that is highly commuted, or a road that needs to be built. In order for your county government or your city government to justify that, they need to show numbers, right? They need to show and prove when they write up the grant to the Department of Transportation, hey, we do have 20,000 people here. Half of those people use this road, and they use it between this time and that time. This is the times that they commute. This is why we need this expansion. This is why we need this lane expansion. This is why we need this road to be, maintained. This is why we need this new bridge. This is why we need this new route. That is the numbers that are used to. So it can be intrusive. I know, just as an individual, I know it can be extremely intrusive, but it is for the purpose of informing yourselves and the elected leaders and the community leaders. And so that conversation is very different. And you as the trusted voice, that is when you have to explain to them, like, listen, this is why we need this. This is not why the federal government needs it, because the federal government doesn't need this. Like, it's not like the Bureau itself doesn't need this data. You need this data. You requested it from the federal government. The federal government went to its surveying agency, which is based on Title 13 of the U.S. Code. It's the Census Bureau. So the Census Bureau went out and did this, right? But the reality is the Census Bureau has no need for this. Is not our information. We're not compiling some report for our own purposes. This report is going to go back to the Department of Transportation. It's going to go back to the county because the county requested it. And so that's kind of the flow of information. So explaining that to people goes a long way, because if you're able to say, you know what, yes, the Census Bureau is out there, and yes, they're asking very intrusive questions about how many housing units you have, how many tenants you have, but you know what, we're trying to get housing permits in the county, or we're trying to make an accurate count for our census tract, and I'll go over that a little bit when I go over the Rome, and that's why it's critical that you do it. I know it's coming from the federal government, but it's actually that information is coming back to us, so please complete it. Simple as that. Any questions on that? Because that is a great one, and thank you so much, Jenny, for bringing it up, because that is one that I get constantly. Our seniors as well. Thankfully, a lot of our seniors have done multiple censuses, and they come from a generation where service meant a little bit something different to them, and so they're very patriotic, and they understand that this is their duty and this is mandated in the U.S. Constitution, and they want to fulfill that duty as some of them, right? And we also have the others that don't necessarily trust the government, and so the messaging has to change. That is why you are here as the Complete Count Committee, to inform us on that.
I have one more question.
Yes.
I received this in the mail also.
Okay.
It's the 2019 Congressional District Census. So it's another census, but I think that people need to be clear that it has nothing, it's from the Republican Party, it has nothing to do with our census, but they use the word, and we might get phone calls. So I just thought I'd bring that up too.
Yes. And so
can I interject real quick, Chairman? I think this one is a discussion to just do afterwards.
Yeah.
We can talk about afterwards. Let's kind of get it back on track to the training so we can move forward with this.
And so in terms of going back to a training on this one.
Well, let's just go into the training,
okay.
What you guys are planning on doing. This is a discussion you guys can have afterwards.
Okay.
Better idea to do that.
Okay. So I'm just trying to get back on. Can we get back on the... Yeah. There we go. All right. She can...
All right, so planning your work and working your plan for your Complete Count Committee. Your next steps. Make sure you identify and name your Complete Count Committee. Is it going to be county, or is it going to be city specific? Is it going to be Mojave County CCC, or will it be the Kingman CCC? A lot of folks do county-wide because that covers a lot of cities and towns. Make sure you describe the structure of your committee, and all examples of all of these are in your folders there. And then make sure you have strategies on how you're going to reach these hard-to-count populations. Your 0 to 5 children, your non-English speakers. These rural areas are difficult to count. And it helps to have a specific strategy on how to reach them. And then make sure you have a timetable of events and activities. It could be a very loose timetable, something that gets a little more structured as you go along. With that data that's in your folder, the quick facts about Kingman City and Mojave County, you can use your local knowledge to see how you can reach these populations. How are you going to reach those folks outside of internet service? How are you going to approach the person that wrote in and said, I don't want to be harassed by the census, or let me tell you what's going on? How do you pull them back into the fold? And there's several data tools on the census website that will make sure you have links to that you can use to identify your hard to count populations. Now this ROAM on the census website, Luis is going to do a live demo on that, on how to identify your hard to count populations and your low response scores.
Yeah, no, I'll show it again. So hopefully it works. There we go. It's the Response Outreach Area Mapper. And so as it loads in there, I don't need the slides to come back up, but I just wanted to explain this really briefly. The low response scores that you see, that is the estimated number of folks that are not going to respond. So if you see 25 or 23 or 30-something% of folks, that's not the amount of number that responded. That's the amount of number that were estimated that won't respond. That number is based on a couple of things. That number is based on previous decennial censuses, and it's also based on some of the response rates on other census surveys that we do, like the American Community Survey or any special survey. So we have a particular census tract that responds very well, then it'll kind of make this number go up or down. One of the things to consider is that this is the first time that we are going to have this online option. And so Arizona was one of the test sites for the 2020 decennial census. In 2015, we ran a sample census where we went out there and tried to do the census response online. And so we saw in certain areas up to a 50% increase in response rates, which is great. It's great. So that is a good thing in terms of the way we're doing things now with technology and allowing people to do this online. Census tracts. I just want to mention something about census tracts. And on your if you want to pull this out, there's a Rome activity handout as well in your packet, and we can go over it now when I do the census presentation here. The census tracts. So the way census tracts work is your planning departments either got together with the Board of Supervisors or city managers and suggested some tracts for the U.S. Census in order to track your population. Every decennial census, you have the opportunity to change your tracts. Why would you want to change your tracts? Well, one of the reasons why you would want to change your tracts is if you have seen growth in a certain area. There are some areas in your county that have more cattle than people. Right. However, there are certain areas where certain development has happened, and so they might be part of a tract that was in another, from the previous decennial census, that the development wasn't there 10 years ago or 20 years ago, that's there now. And so if you want to redraw your tract to track that, you can. Every decennial census you can. Now that period has passed already for this decennial census, but you can definitely, as a committee, make sure that you make your planning department and your city managers aware of this. There's a lot of benefits to changing your tracts. And it varies per community, right? There are federal grants that are going to particular populations, right? And so if you do have an area where you saw, there was a large amount of winter visitors, and you're going after a community grant that might have that might be specific to the senior population or our traveling or winter visitors, right? Having that data in that track, you're able to provide a more specific sampling number rather than having the general as a whole. And so I can give you examples of other municipalities across Arizona who have actually split their cities, and I'll pull some up right now, where their city has developed in one area and the other area is just farmland. And so they split that into a separate track so they can track their growth, so that when they do apply for federal grants, they have that specific track number that they can reference in terms of why they would want that money coming back to their community. It's an option for you. A lot of folks don't know that that's an option. That is one of the reasons why, and I'll show you here when we get to it. So if you go to census.gov/Rome, you'll come up with this map. On this map, you can pull up whatever you want. So whatever part of the United States. So we can go to Mojave County. Ooh. And there you are. Oh, let me zoom out. Oh, I'm the worst at this. There it is. So the darker the blue, the higher the low response score is, so the worse off you are. Our gray areas are areas where we had that update leave or update enumerate, where they didn't have a low response scores. This is a lot of our tribal lands have this. A lot of our rural communities, you'll see if you look at the map of Arizona, this is a lot of our tribal lands that actually have grays. And what it is, they actually don't have an opportunity to self-response because we were going out there and filling it out with update enumerate the previous census. This census, we're doing update leave when we're leaving it with them. In previous censuses, what they were doing was update enumerate. They were going down there, they were knocking and enumerating them there, right? We're not doing that this time around. And so if you look again, depending on the color, you can see that part right there is 15.2, and there's a breakdown of the demographics of that. Are you guys able to see it? Are you able to follow there? You're not? Okay, I'm so sorry that it's fussy on your end, but I think it's being recorded, so if you want to go over it later, you can. The demographics of your area is there. And so I want to give you a quick example of a community that did what I talked about in terms of not separating themselves, but being able to track their numbers. So Eager, Arizona and Apache County did a really good job of this, and you'll see it here in a second when it pops up. So this is the census tract for Eager, Arizona. This little dot right here. And it looks very similar to other census tracts in your county, except for when you pull out of the actual county and you look at the big picture, they literally build their own little census tract. So it's that little dot. Other census tracts are larger, as you can see, by the borderline there. they literally build their own little census tract because there are money that they're trying to get that's not necessarily going to the county as a whole, that they're going to as a municipality, and so they need those numbers, right? Another community that is now looking at doing that for the next census is St. John's. St. John's is actually split in two. They decided this made sense several decades ago because of the way that we were built and it was developed. It's not making too much sense now. So we talked about this in our training, and they're going to redraw theirs for the next. They said it's too late now, but they're going to redraw theirs to kind of just do what Eager did and cover their own little municipality. And so if we look, for example, at Kingman, Arizona. You can see that Kingman is also similar in terms of they have their own census tract. Even within like Golden Valley or the other areas that surrounding them, they have larger census tracts. However, they very smartly redrew theirs to just capture their people. There's a benefit to that. And again, you as the Complete Count Committee can go in here and look at this information. This is all public. You can advocate to your elected officials and your attorneys and your clerks as to why this needs to be done this way. But this is your information, and so it's in there for you. We're going to look briefly at Kingman's information just because we're in Kingman, so we'll show some deference to our host. So if you look at some of the population that is here, and we'll look at, like, for example, renter-occupied housing, right? It's about 47.2% of the population here are renters. Renters are an identified hard-to-count community for the Census Bureau. The reason that they are hard to count is there's a lot of misinformation in terms of, well, I'm only here for 6 months and then I'm going to move somewhere else, or my lease is up shortly before the census. Do I still have to fill it out? Or maybe they're a new resident who got a lease that's going to be here, or they don't know whether they're going to be here or not, or they feel that because it's not their home, perhaps this should be done by the owner or the landlord rather than the person that's renting, right? The reality is whoever is there, if you are there, you need to be counted there because you are using that particular municipality, that particular county's resources. When we talk about why we get such a huge undercount, if a majority of those renters do not fill out the questionnaire because they're confused, because they don't understand that, no, your landlord is not going to fill this out, you are, that can leave out about half of the population in the city of Kingman. So it's very important that they understand, like, when you get this, you need to fill it out. Don't leave it up to your landlord. Don't leave it up to whomever. You have to fill it out. If you're moving in and you just moved in and you signed your 1-year lease, you're here now and we know you're going to be here, finish your census here, right? If you're planning, the example that I gave folks, I'm not from Maricopa County originally. I was from Yuma County. I went to Maricopa County a few years ago just to finish up at ASU. And I said, there's no way in heck that I'm going to stay here for longer than once I'm done with my degree, I'm out of here. 7 years later, I'm still there. And yes, I'm still trying to get out of Maricopa County. I brought my wife in here. We're looking at places. I told them Kingman or Lake Havasu is probably where we're coming next because I'm not a fan of Maricopa County. Oh, that's on record. My bad. Oh, my bad. I forgot. You guys are recording. I love Maricopa County. I am lying through my teeth. That is on record. Oops. But yeah, so, people's plans change, right? However, when you are there, you're there. And so you need to be counted there because you're using those resources there. You're using the school system that's there. You're using the roads that are there. You're using the city services that are there. So you need to be counted there. It doesn't matter whether you feel like, well, my home is, in Yuma or my home is in Phoenix and I'm just here temporarily. No, you're here now and you should be counted here, right? And so other challenges that can be found here, family occupied housing with related children under 6. So that's about 40%. 38.86 to be exact, right? Again, when we talk about our undercounted youth, yes, religious purposes is one of those reasons why children are undercounted. Cultural purposes is one of those reasons why children are undercounted. Children that live with grandparents is very common, very common. And I mean, I talk to grandparents that, oh yeah, my daughter dropped my kid, her kid's off here for a month, and it's 5 years later and she still hasn't picked up her kids, right? Like, that's the reality. Kids live with their grandparents, and so those grandparents might feel like, well, these kids are going to be counting in their homes, or their parents should count these kids. The reality, again, is those kids are living with you. They're using the resources of that community. They need to be counted in that community, because that's how we get resources back. One of the other things that I like to talk about in terms of Arizona as a whole, our funding formulas are heavily utilized. They're based on census numbers. So if you talk with city managers or your board of supervisors, you hear about like your sales tax or your fuel sales tax. It all goes to the state, right? And then the state is supposed to run it through their funding formula and send it back to you, right? Well, that formula that they're sending back to you to calculate how much money to send back to the county or the city has census data in it. So it's based off of the population count. It's not the only thing that is based off. It's not a direct funding formula. There's other things that they're also based in there as well. I'm not saying that it's the only thing, but it is of consideration. And for some communities, especially smaller communities, I have talked with several city managers who keep telling me, it's like, it's disproportionate. We're not getting back what we're putting in, and we're putting in so much more than other larger municipalities, and we're not getting the money back. Part of the reason why they're not getting the money back, again, is because their numbers, if your numbers aren't up to date, if they're not accurate, your funding formulas will be affected. Okay, so that is another reason why you might want to take a look at your census tracts and make sure that you do have it captured as accurately as possible. Another very interesting one, again, here is households with computers. It's 67.78%, and about 30% of the households do not have internet, right? And of those that have computer, about 54% have broadband access. Again, it's very, yeah, go ahead.
Are these numbers from 10 years ago?
No, these are, so the Census Rome website, it has the numbers from 10 years ago, but it's also updated based on American Community Survey, which is done every year, right? So there is no question about your internet access on the census. The census questionnaire has 10 questions on it. Internet is not on there. This is where we go back to what we talked about, why this is important, right? When we send the American Community Survey out, or another survey out that does ask this question, folks are thinking, well, why the heck does the Census Bureau want to know whether I have internet or not? Is this big brother trying to track me online or something? They're being asked because this is the information that we're putting into our systems that goes to inform your decisions, right? It goes to inform small businesses. It goes to inform local government. And so that's why that's there. And it provides a unique opportunity. What I like to remind folks is this will be the first census in history. And I want to be very, very clear, not U.S. history, in human history. This is the first time that we as a human species has ever done a census online. No other developed country has done this. No other country has done this. So we are at the vanguard, right? A lot of opportunities, but a lot of challenges. Scams become another whole issue. It's one thing to try to scam someone face to face. Some people are really good at reading folks and get that, this is not right. It's another to try to scam them via, their letters, because they'll just take it and toss it. It's a whole different scenario when you're constantly being spammed and it looks like a legitimate thing. And so that is one of the things that one of the reasons why you are so valuable, because you will be able to tell folks, no, the Census Bureau is not going to send you an email link with this, because that's not how that works. You have to log in online. Not only that, but if you want a secure place to log in online, we have maybe a library where you can come complete the census. Our county libraries will be open for you to come do it, right? Or our city offices, or our this particular school district, their computer lab is going to be open during parent-teacher night. Or when, the back-to-school drive that's going to happen in this church, they have 10 computers there. We're going to use those. That way it's a known, secure partner where we can use this to do that. That sort of opportunity is what we're talking about. I wanted to go over one last number with y'all, and it was right there, and it was the, sorry, there we go. It was the number of folks with smartphones, with only smartphones, right? And I wanted to go over this number because, again, it's online, and so for a lot of folks, your handheld, this is a mini computer for all. I can send emails through this, I can look at videos, I can do research, I can do all kinds of stuff. This is a computer in my hand, right? The Census will not have an application that you have to download. So if somebody's going around saying, hey, please download this application, that's how you're gonna get the census completed. You have to go through this application, or there's a link on Facebook that says, hey, download your app, or download the app so you can complete the census. Know that there is gonna be no application on here. There's going to be nothing. It's going to just be like this, like if you go to census.gov, it's going to be the same link. It'll be mobile friendly though, which means it'll adjust to fit the screen, and it'll be able to do it on over your phone. Literally 10 question, 10 minutes. For millennials, it'll be 10 questions, 5 minutes, because they can probably do this a lot faster, right? But please be aware that there's not going to be an application. But there will be Facebook ads and social media ads purchased as well by the Census Bureau to get to some of those folks. Some folks in rural Arizona, they'll never see that, right? But they do have this, and so if they come across a link and you hear that they're trying to download an app, just let them know that's not legit. Just go to the census.gov, and it has to be, again, a .gov, G-O-V website, because there'll be census.org or census.net or 2020census.com. None of that is legitimate. It is a census.gov website. Okay. Any questions on the Roam on this tool here? It's a very handy tool. When you first look at it, it's kind of a little bit too much, but there are base map galleries where you can go over and overlay it with like the roads, so you get a better picture of the community you're looking at, right? So you can see the main roads. There's street level as well with terrains that looks at the primary highways. Route 66 is obviously there. And so you can add certain data that you're looking for specifically if you want, or terrain. You can go really in the weeds with this, and some communities do. And so, but it's completely up to you. This is meant to be used to inform your outreach strategy, right? So if you know that you have a lot of seniors in one area, then hitting up the senior homes might be a good idea, right? Rather than maybe libraries or school districts. And so this tool is great for you guys as a group to get together and plan for your outreach. Any questions on this one? Anybody? Like, I know I'm not as good as turning around like Kimberly is. No? Okay, I think we're good with this part, so I'll throw up the
No
presentation.
problem. And actually, Luis reminded me that we are being recorded, so maybe me walking around, my type A personality comes out quite a bit. And so I'm used to being a public speaker. I was a park ranger for the National Park Service, and so I'm used to doing goofy things in front of large groups of people. And I'm trying not to be so goofy right now. It's kind of hard. Which slide are we on? I guess. Yeah.
I didn't do this exercise with y'all, but please feel free to do it on your own.
Yeah, the Roam activity handout is something you can do in your complete count committees. And that's how you identify your strategies as to how you're going to reach the hard to count populations. So right now we're down to 8 more slides, and then we're done. If you go to census.gov or 2020census.gov, you'll see a lot of valuable tools on how you can do your branding, your partnering, how to reach out. Me and Luis, we're also tools. If you need suggestions, Luis and I are both small business owners, so you want to talk about marketing and branding, we can help you with that. That's something that we've done for several years. if you go to census.gov or 2020census.gov, there's on the right side, there's a link for partners. If you click on the link for partners, you'll find the logo, how to use the logo, slogans, suggestions, community outreach toolkits. It's one of those things that's very cool. I'm a census nerd, so I think it's just, I get giddy with it. Also, census jobs. We're always looking for people of the community to go out and be census takers. It's not just census takers out there. There are also administrative positions. There are field positions, and we're going to be hiring for those. We need a large bank of candidates because, like I've said before, all it takes is one dog. One dog, a census taker's out there. It's like, I'm out of here. I'm done. We need a large pool of candidates, people that the community will recognize. So encourage everyone to apply for census jobs. I think it's 18 over, 21 or over. And it can be on census.gov or 2020census.gov. Either website will give you a link to jobs, available jobs.
I have this on my mind because I met with the area census managers last week, and so they did ask us to let you all know that operations are actually starting. I know you guys are starting just now as a complete count committee, but the Census Bureau is actually starting. So if you remember on your faces sheet where you have the dates, address canvassing is the first major operation that the census has, and all it is we have folks driving around in certain communities, driving around in other communities, walking around during the day, verifying address. That's all they are doing, right? Communities didn't have address before, or didn't have a road that now has a road. They change a road to a particular community member that's of importance to them, president. They change the name of the road, and so all we're doing is making sure that we have the most accurate data. We're going to have folks out there just looking at the road or the map, saying yes, there's a structure here, or no, there's no structure here. I don't know how you got this. It's nope, yes or no. They will ask one question, and it's a census question that has to do with other housing units. And so if we have a situation where we do have a home that has one record but has multiple units, that's not necessarily an apartment complex, but has a trailer in the back and a little house and an in-law suite and the actual structure, we have to know how many structures are there and which structures have people living in them. The reason we ask that is partially for quality control of census data. So every census sheet is not tied to you as a person, it's tied to a housing unit. And so if we have one address that has 4 housing units with one address and we get 4 census questionnaires back, that's going to trigger us like that's not valid. Either 4 different people, answered that, or somebody's trying to scam it, and it'll throw off the numbers, right? However, if we know ahead of time through address canvassing that, yes, this is an address with 4 housing units, and we receive 4 separate questionnaires or 4 separate answers from that one unit, then we know, okay, that's correct, and then we just move on. But jobs are available, and they started now, and we are doing it now.
Yeah, and several of the jobs are actually very flexible. So you can even approach stay-at-home parents, college students, retirees. We have people that previously did the census and they're coming back on board. A lot of folks that did the 2010 census don't know that the 2020 census is kicking off right now. So they're going to come back on board. Since I'm based out of Flagstaff, I approach a lot of college students about doing the census work because it is flexible. Census takers can work in the evenings too. So there are several flexible positions, and they are part-time. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. They're part-time and they're temporary. So that could be a hard sell or it could be an easy sell. All right, so planning your work. I think I did this before. Yeah, public service announcements, community activities that you can do. Sorry, let me back up. Activities that you can do as a committee to outreach to your hard to count populations. I would encourage everyone to please not discount any suggestions from your community, from your committee members, because there are several different trains of thought about the census. There are myths that you fill out your census form the way you would do your taxes. The census has nothing to do with your taxes. There's a myth that you should fill out the census form the way that your pastor told you to. I've heard that one. Please don't do that. There are a lot of myths, and only you of the community can address these myths. You can do public service announcements, advertising campaigns. Some cities and counties are able to get free advertisement. If you have a newsletter, the logo on your website, I highly encourage co-branding with small business owners. That's something that I'm really pushing in these smaller towns. I go around to small business owners and say, will you partner with us? And what they can do is go on the Census website. They agree to use the Census logo in a certain way. That means they won't make it paisley or anything like that. They won't get too creative with it, and they can co-brand on their products. I have one restaurant in downtown Flagstaff that has agreed to put the Census logo on his seasonal menu. So for the fall and winter menu, he's going to put the Census logo on his menus. I encourage creativity. I think the Census Bureau is definitely into creativity. You can use faith-based activities, translate material, even though on the Census website we have several languages available, and local media coverage. This work plan is in your folders, and that's something you can do as a committee. And a lot of the stuff that's in your folders, I'm glazing over because I don't want to read the forms to you, but does anyone have any questions so far? Yes, ma'am.
I am to assume that all of this advertising dollars comes from the county or the cities, so the Census Committee doesn't pay for any of this, and this is normal throughout the country, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The complete count committees are the ones, and I have been shocked, the complete count committees are the ones that are able to get grants, and they're able to get the funding to do the swag, what we call swag, t-shirts, newsletters, radio advertising. Even though you might find that a lot of your local media outlets are willing to give you free advertising, billboards, the electronic billboards, if it's on city property, sometimes the contract is written in that the city or county, they're allowed so much advertisement time. You can use that. I also encourage going to schools, the school newsletter, the PTA, PTO newsletter, things like that. But yes, it all comes from the Complete Count Committee.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that a little bit. It varies per committee. You can get with your clerk and your attorneys and whoever is going to be that liaison to the board of supervisors or whatever structure you're going to, because it does vary wildly by committee. Some committees actually have funds that are available to them. Others don't. Others are able to submit suggestions to the county who has the funds. So don't feel like every committee has control and you guys are being left out if you don't, or that they gave you this funds and now you're being told to administer. Every committee is different.
So just for a form of information for you, at this point in time, the board set up that you would have to have someone come back to the board to request funds or expenditures.
And that'll be that other slide. And what that looks like, again, depends to your board and your community. Some folks are setting a small amount of funds aside for marketing. Others are sending a large amount for outreach. Every committee, we as the Census Bureau cannot tell you how much or that you even should, if you should or shouldn't.
In each CCC, you can go big or you can go small. There's a lot of free advertisement you can do, which is why I'm encouraging so much. Use your business partners. Say, hey, are you willing to put our logo on your Facebook page? It would be, it's amazing how just seeing that logo around on social media can encourage people and start triggering the thought of filling out your census form. So that's what the partnerships do. So the CCC goes out and forms these partnerships, and you can get this advertisement. Even if you don't have a big spending budget, it's a reciprocal relationship. So for someone that owns a restaurant and they're advertising the census on their restaurant menus, you could take that around to other businesses that would otherwise not think about that and say, hey, look what this restaurant's doing. And that's how I approach small business owners. It's like, I'll take your menu around and show, hey, look what this restaurant is doing. We're not endorsing this restaurant, but that's an audience that you may not reach otherwise. Any other questions about that? All right, good. 2020 Census Integrated Communications Campaign. When I went to rent my car yesterday, I was talking to the gentleman that usually helps me rent my car at Flagstaff Airport. And I told him the last time that I rented a car, I said, you're going to be seeing a lot of me. I didn't tell him why. And then this time I said, hey, I'm back. You'll be seeing a lot of me. And he said, well, what do you do? I said, well, I work for the U.S. Census Bureau. And he said, what's that? And it occurred to me that just like what I call the American Idol generation, people that grew up watching American Idol, something I used to watch with my grandmother, they watch American Idol starting at 5, 6 years old, and they grow up watching American Idol, and then they audition for American Idol and get on it. The census isn't like that. This generation coming up, some folks have absolutely no experience with the census, has never heard of the census before. So when I go out and approach certain communities, especially college students, and they say, what the heck is the census? One of the things our complete count committees do is they think of a way to connect the census with that community. How do I connect the census with a younger generation? How do I connect the census with that 24-year-old mom and dad who before probably never saw a census form? Their parents did, but they never saw that census form. One of the things I like to say is data to dollars. You need the data so this county and the city of Kingman can get the dollars, fix those potholes, fund the school districts. So there are additional resources. There are resources all over the place. Luis and I, again, are resources. The website is a resource. And you can determine your local needs, free existing communication, small business owners, radio, television stations, newsletters, write it on your sidewalks, mow it into your grass. Existing events, I'm going to be going out to a lot of farmers markets and a lot of kindergarten orientations, a lot of school open houses. Again, I take care of Northern Arizona. If you need someone there fairly entertaining and mildly kind to come to an orientation, I can come there. I make people laugh sometimes, and anything to get them to think of the census. You can do major businesses, corporations, foundations. A lot of CCCs partner with healthcare facilities, posters, anything. You can go up to the gas station and say, are you willing to put this poster in your window for 2 months? And what can you expect from your partnership specialists? What can you expect from me and Luis? We're a liaison between the Census Bureau and your Complete Count Committee. We're a source for ideas. If you want to know what another Complete Count Committee is doing, we can get you that information. We can connect you with another Complete Count Committee if you need help forming or thinking of marketing plans. We are advisors and information resources, and we help to identify awareness activities. If you need help on Rome, if you want to know where is your hard to count population, which tract has the most rural population, we can definitely get you that information too. We'll attend your CCC meetings. One of us should be available, but if I can't come, I will definitely reach out to other partnership specialists and see if they can come up to the CCC meeting. All you have to do is contact us, and we'll see if we can get here. And we always encourage innovation, entertaining ideas, different things. So I'm full of that too. And in summary, the CCC training manual is inside your books. That's been created to help you form the CCC, and you can develop strategies and activities to make the best use of your resources.
So I just wanted to really briefly, so I always add this when what we do is also very important, what we are not here to do. So we are not here to tell you how to run your budget. We are not here to tell you who to put on your CCC. We are not here to tell you, hey, that's a horrible strategy, please don't do that. Right? Unless it's, you're grown-ups and I'm sure you're not going to do that, but we're not here to kind of do any of that. We're just here to be a resource. And so we cannot have, hey, can you come speak to our board and help us pass the budget and make sure you talk about why they should have this budget. We cannot advocate for any legislation pro or against. We are bound by the Hatch Act not to go there, right? And so I just wanted to clarify that, we are not here to do that. We are just point of contact and information, make sure that everyone does get the messaging on straight, that everyone's on board, that we clarify when something goes out that is inaccurate. We do have, while we don't push any sort of mandatory passing of like a proclamation for you guys, we do have sample proclamations from other counties and other municipalities who have passed proclamations saying, you know, we have a complete count committee and we're looking forward to participating in the census. Cannot push it on you, but if you do want that, we have that available from what other counties in Arizona have done.
Thank you, everyone. Do you have any questions for me or Luis? Thank you very much for your time.
So I just want to end it real quick because I know we didn't show this. So in terms of our marketing and what we are doing, it's a quick minute video. I don't know if any of you have seen it yet, but there is videos out there from the census already. So this is our first census video that we put out there. You are likely to see this out more as we continue to push forward.
Can one girl in a small town, an architect in a major city, and a suburban high school coach shape the future of the United States? Yes, they can. Because every 10 years, the census gives us that power. You can shape your future by responding to the 2020 census. Where do we need new roads to make our lives easier? Where will new school programs help our children thrive? Where could a new health clinic benefit neighborhoods? The 2020 census will inform these decisions and shape how billions of dollars will be distributed to communities like yours each year. And in 2020, you can respond to the census online, by phone, or by mail. It's easy, safe, and important. Make sure you and everyone you know is counted. Now is the time for you to get involved. Your community needs you. Together, we can educate and excite, inspire and make sure every voice is heard. Together, we can shape our future.
That's something else. I think we're yeah, that's it for us. So we're done. I don't know how to properly end this with the agenda items.
Well, we have one more agenda item. Discussion and possible action regarding identifying topics for the next meeting. So any suggestions?
I'd like to put on there, discuss our budget for the next meeting.
Okay, I had that one. Any?
Possibly an idea. In order to discuss the budget, you need some ideas of how you're going to get get the word out. Also, possibly any subcommittees that you might want to create in order to go forward. It's going to be a tremendous discussion in itself, the ideas as well as what the cost might be and the subcommittees you're going to create. That might be all you're going to want to do, but
Okay, and anyone else? I also had written down the scams. Should we talk about potential scams that are out there? Okay. And maybe a little bit more information on the tracks, or is that too many things to discuss at once? Should we leave that for another one? We can move it, okay. And then another one that I came up with while we were sitting here is basically the slogan. I mean, I think you said that we needed to name ourselves, maybe come up with our own hashtag type of things. That seems to me something we should do early on. Okay. Say that again.
So just mind on that item, and we will send you the link. So there are guidelines in terms of how you're allowed to use our tagline, which is "Share your future, start here," and we'll get that to you.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay. Anything else? Motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, not about the number 5, but in the bylaws, Article 5 regarding the meetings, they say they're to be held on the third Wednesday of each month at 3 p.m. at this facility. I'm wondering, is there any way we can change or rotate the meetings to the other areas to make it fair for all the volunteers, and then maybe also have some of the people in the community be able to attend?
So
Is that
to answer your
possible?
question, it's not impossible. However, there would have to be, we would have to have a change to the bylaws drawn up. It would come before your committee to vote on that, yep, we want to make these changes, and then it would go before the Board of Supervisors to approve the change. Not impossible, but it's a little process.
Okay.
So if you wanted to discuss that at your next meeting,
I was going to say, is
so
that
that
something we
someone
could
can
put on
do
the
a
agenda?
revised copy, bring it to you, say, this is what we'd like to do.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, see you all next month.
No second.